You get some rest today on a holiday, some much-needed sleepiness before you go back to school?
I'm not going back to school.
Are you done with school?
I graduated.
Oh,
I have a degree.
Shit, you're educated!
I didn't try very hard, so I don't really feel much different.
I don't think anybody really feels that much different when they get out of school. They feel different in it. Like, tired, overworked, filling their head with, a good contingent of things that they don't really need. That was the resigned sigh of a man who feels like he's just wasted a couple years of his life.
Whatever. It's all good.
I guess. Some of it, maybe. You having a good Labor Day weekend?
Well, actually, as it turns out, I basically didn't do anything different than if it had not been a holiday. I posted news, and I played games for review, and I didn't sleep, and that's just kind of par for the course.
Do you have, any joy in your life at all?
Fire Emblem?
God, and I spend so much time shitting all over that. I'm sorry.
You know what's funny? Because I'm still watching Game of Thrones, and I just got to the episode where they used the Greek fire on ships, which is a big plot point in the latest Fire Emblem, which adds to my theory that they are one and the same.
I guess they might be.
If I leave this in the recording, refer to the ending of last week's episode for the rest of that theory, because it's pretty extensive. They're very similar. But yeah, last night I didn't sleep, not because of video games, but because the only time my brother was available to go to the movies was early this morning, and I didn't trust myself to wake up on time. So I just powered through, and we went and saw The World's End, Simon Pegg.
At World's End?
No, The World's End by Edgar Wright, Nick Frost, and Simon Pegg.
I thought it was called At World's End.
Nope, that's Pirates of the Caribbean 4.
Ah.
And not to be confused with This Is the End by Seth Rogen and his friends.
Yeah, because they came out really close to each other. Not Pirates of the Caribbean and This Is the End. This Is the End and The World's End.
Yes.
They came out very, very close to one another. And they both had funny people in them. Though one of them was British. The other was not.
That would be the alternative to being British.
For those people who are keeping score, one of those movies is British.
Johnny, what am I going to do with you?
Probably bury me in a shallow grave eventually, if I'm going to be realistic about it.
Why shallow? Just not putting the effort in to give you a full grave?
I imagine that you'll get part way through it and then just be like, fuck it, it's only Johnny.
Close enough.
Yeah, exactly. You'll be like, either through disrespect or through us being so close that you'll be like, he won't give a shit, he's dead.
This is what he'd want.
Yeah, exactly. You'll probably sit down and think about it and be like, really? If Johnny had his way, he would probably want to be raised out of the ground when the floodwaters get a little bit high, in hopes of perhaps scaring a wayward, wandering school child.
That sounds like something we would do on this podcast. Unearthing corpses and using them to frighten children.
Well, not necessarily purposefully, but we may set it up insofar that any corpses that we placed in certain areas might inevitably wind up scaring children.
It's not the intention, but it is a nice bonus.
Exactly. It's not like we would put corpses on spikes in front of elementary schools or something like that. That'd lack subtlety. That'd be way too direct. So, I envision, anyways, that we would do things like bury them in sports fields,
I hear you.
So that when the rain comes down and, the body lifts up, kids are, running for the end zone or whatever. And then just, dead body.
Do we want to say that the reason we don't have a third person on here is because we can't be fucked to even contact anyone?
You know what, we could be nice about it. We could pretend that we're giving everybody, the week off because of or the day off, the podcast off, because of the holiday. And we are kindly not subjecting any of our fellow contributors at Blistered Thumbs to our particular brand of shenanigans.
It is Labor Day. Isn't that is that North America?
I think they have holidays similar to it over in the United Kingdom.
But is it on this date?
I don't believe so.
Because I woke up this morning and I was like, it's technically a holiday, but the internet is international, so I wouldn't feel right not doing any work today.
Wikipedia says Labor Day is synonymous with or linked with International Workers' Day, which occurs on the 1st of May. All right, so in other countries it is, I believe, I think they call that May Day.
Well, luckily it was the last day of PAX Prime today, so no real news came out because all the people were busy with their hangovers in Seattle. You know what I don't like. This amazes me. I mean, it's probably going to amaze a bunch of other people, and everybody's going to be like, Johnny, what the fuck is wrong with you? I live in like the Greater Vancouver Regional District. Technically, the township I live in is Burnaby, but I'm literally like a block away from Vancouver proper. Like I could throw dirt and have it land in the United States, pretty much, almost. I'm like a half an hour's drive away from the border. Previous to moving here, I literally could have spit into the United States. Like I lived right on the border. And I've never been to PAX Prime. Never been. I'm not much of an event guy. Like I went to E3 and that was good, but I'm not in a hurry to go back. I don't really.
Me neither. I mean, I'm not into large, loud rooms full of people who smell.
Well, there's that, and also just from my time covering events and stuff, it seems like most of the people there aren't interested in working. Like when I was the whole time at E3, I was like, okay, we got to do this, we got to get this interview, we got to hit this coverage, we got to get back to the press room, get that up on the site, and everyone else is like, you want to go for drinks? Hey, let's go look at the booth babes. Hey, did you play the video games for fun? I don't know. I'm just kind of a no fun guy, I guess.
No, I mean, I've never even been to PAX for fun. Like for no reason whatsoever. I haven't even been in like Seattle while PAX is going on. I was invited to. My good friend and a previous guest on the podcast, Mr. Dant Rambo, was at the Indie Mega Booth at PAX with his company Gaijin Games this weekend, and he was like, "Oh God, you should like totally come down, and we can have too much to drink and be cool in different places than we are normally cool in." And I was like, hey, that sounds great. But then like yesterday, I was looking at fucking like border crossing times, and I'm like, God damn it, no, I don't want to do that. It was but I've never been to PAX, so I don't know. Maybe one of these days one of these years I should do it, and I don't know, pretend like I'm a journalist or something.
I don't like the title journalist. If someone asked me if I was a journalist, I would say no. I think of myself as a writer, and that's pretty much it. I write.
Yeah. It's kind of insulting to be like video games journalism.
Insulting to real journalists, you mean?
Yeah. Guys that do things like go to Benghazi or Darfur or something like that, and look at like mass graves and write up big articles about like people who do real digging. But then like games journalists, you wake up, you get an email from someone, you're like, maybe somebody's interested in that. Cut paste. There we go.
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend anyone take us seriously as any kind of professionals. We are, the internet equivalent of clowns. Maybe mimes.
It's basically glorified PR is what it is.
That's what's interesting though. First of all, a lot of games journalists immediately transition into PR. If you go to like every PR firm, they're entirely staffed by former games journalists.
Yep.
But I've seen a lot of commenters, maybe not necessarily on our site, but around the internet, who get mad when journalists aren't PR. You'd think they'd want us to not play that game, but like I saw a bunch of people who were like, "Oh, why didn't you report on this? Why don't you give companies free publicity instead of, discovering things that they don't want people to know. There's the leaked emails that Kotaku got about Bethesda,
Yep.
and people were all mad that they published them. Like, that is the closest to journalism we've ever come, but no one wants that. They just want
those press sneak fucks.
So I don't know. It's a weird space right now. The internet is changing journalism, and even the most mainstream journalism kind of sucks right now. So you can only imagine the quote unquote enthusiast press is not anywhere you want to go for.
Which is really like all games journalism. All games writers really are is enthusiast press. I mean, it's like nobody in their right mind who wants to be a journalist, who goes to school and actually fucking studies journalism, communications, like poli-sci, things like that, whatnot, gets a job at GameSpot.
Look, we talk shit about Jeff Cayley, but he's actually done some interesting investigative pieces. Like, he'll embed himself in a developer for a couple of weeks, near the end, and chronicle that stuff. That's the closest I think we get. But you need to have either have the highest of high contacts. You need to be fucking
Jeff Keighley to do that.
Yeah, then you have to take all those pictures with the Doritos and the Mountain Dew. That's the trade-off.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta get your face on the G4 TV. You gotta co-host with a pretty girl who reads lines about gaming, and is so excited for the Splinter Cell.
I'm pretty thoroughly over the whole thing, the press aspect of it. I like video games. I like playing and talking and thinking about video games, but I don't know, especially after last week. And we had some interesting comments about the whole ad blocking thing. I thought about getting really into that, replying to all those comments, and I just decided it's you have your opinion, I have mine, and if this really becomes an actual all-out argument, I might just quit. I can't mentally work from dusk to dawn every single day of my life and then defend my right to have a roof over my head.
To be paid for it.
Yeah, that's a suicide attempt waiting to happen. There's just, oh my lord, video games. Why is it all so hard?
Yeah, I don't know. And I'll be honest with you, I kind of fell out of love with the whole concept of video games journalism pretty quickly after I got a position at Blistered Thumbs.
I think once you get a look at the black heart of this industry, it's immediately repelling. I don't think anyone gets in and is yes, this is everything I dreamed of.
Well, it wasn't even looking at the black heart, but it was a sudden drop to realization about what the benefits actually are.
You mean getting paid nothing or minimum wage and working 14-hour days?
No, not even that. I mean, because people want to get into video games journalism because they want exclusive access. They want early looks. They want to know about the new games. They want to see it. They want to play that game before anybody else does. And I'm yeah, because it's unfinished and it's actually kind of buggy and it doesn't really work properly. And it's not it's particularly gratifying because you stand there and you play the game for however many minutes and it's okay, that's all and you're all right, I guess.
Oh, and by the way, you can't mention this or this. You have to use only 15-second clips. You blah blah blah, watermarks, blah blah blah, age gate, blah blah blah, embargo.
Yeah, and it's sort of or you can just let the game come out when it's done and play it and enjoy it and talk to all your friends about it and finish it to at least the most extent that you would like to finish the game,
Mm-hmm.
Rather than being forced to and it works. Because, we've had early access to a number of things on BT and every time I get early access, there's that little kid voice inside of me that goes, yeah, I've been waiting for this game for ages. And then I sit down and play it, and the realist, the grown-up in me suddenly goes, you know what? Another couple of weeks to tweak out some bugs probably would have been for the best. And I'm
In a perfect world, there would be no. First of all, review scores, the text would always stand alone and people would have to read every full review to get, everyone's impressions. Also, no, review copies or exclusivity or any of that stuff. Everyone would be on kind of even footing and then the work would stand on its own. But as it is, it's IGN gets everything before everyone else.
Yeah. Or Game Informer.
Game Informer, yeah. And then we all got to compete with that, which means we all have to rush. And then It's a rigged game, and either you play it or you lose.
Yeah. Have you seen? You're a Double Fine adventure contributor, aren't you?
Yes.
Did you watch the latest episode of the documentary?
Not the latest. I'm pretty far behind on that.
There's the latest episode of the documentary, which just came out this week, had a very an interesting scene where Tim Schafer, Greg Rice, and Chris Remo, who is I'm not sure what his official title in Double Fine is, but you can pretty much be guaranteed that it'll either be like community manager or PR.
Mm-hmm.
But Chris Remo used to be a games journalist. And they're talking about how because this episode picks up after the whole announcement of the early access and them changing their funding models to make sure that Double Fine Adventure, that Broken Age, pardon me, is as good a game as they designed it to be. And Tim Schafer is visibly disappointed that he made this huge post explaining everything on the backer forums of the Double Fine website, and how some journalists who also must have been backers decided to cherry pick quotes from that and put up these articles, and these first generation articles weren't really too disrespectful or what have you, but then basically after that, it's the avalanche. It's okay, well, this one site has this thing up because they're asking backers to not talk about what's going on. They're asking backers to be hey, this is a little bit of transparency is nice, but this isn't a press release. We're not being hey, this is what we're doing. You should publish this. This is just a couple of people talking pretty raw on a documentary about a game that they're trying to get made in the best way possible. And Schafer was visibly disappointed that it was that all these gaming websites had either cut and pasted secondhand from these other gaming websites, and it was they were getting headlines that are Double Fine, out of money, and Chris Remo had to explain it, that it was what, we need to recognize that these guys are not, they're not purposefully going after us. The point is that when one person breaks NDA or when one person decides to release information, it's all fucked. The avalanche has started. Unless you report on that information, you are being derelict in your duty.
Yeah, you're leaving money on the table. We should more or less lay out the way video game journalism works. We all are subscribed to the same press mailing lists. We all are subscribed to the same YouTube channels, the same Twitter feeds. We all get the same releases, the same videos, the same assets. So that's, every site looks kind of the same in a lot of respects. But then when someone breaks something exclusive, someone either, talks the publisher into giving them, the first access, or something gets leaked, we all kind of have to report on that, because why would you go to a site that doesn't have it if another site does, because everything else is so similar, you know what I'm saying?
It's pigs at the feeding trough, man. It's as soon as the gate opens for someone, it's a shoving match, and everybody wants a piece of the slop.
It's unfortunate that it's not just games journalism, obviously. I don't know if did you see the Onion feature on the Miley Cyrus thing?
It depends. There's been a couple of pieces about Miley Cyrus on The Onion that I've seen lately.
Oh, the one I got linked to was it was a fake statement by a CNN's main editor or something that they wrote up, talking about how it got 10 times as many page views as their latest coverage of the Syrian conflict right now, and it's talking just basically real talk about the way ad revenue works, and it's if you wanted better news, you would click on good news stories, but you don't. So you get what you deserve, basically. And it's really raw, but it's a comedy website making fun of a thing, but it's they could have actually posted that on CNN and it would have been perfectly valid.
Yeah. No, the one that I got linked to recently was one from a couple of years ago about how America was using up all of its Miley Cyrus, and that if we weren't careful about meting out our usage of Miley Cyrus, then we would run out of Miley Cyrus and wind up with a dilapidated, terrible husk of what was Miley Cyrus in the fashion of Britney Spears. But yeah, this article was written from like years ago on the Onion, like 2 or 3 years ago on the Onion, and I was like, oh, Onion, you're almost clairvoyant.
Actually, I think that's kind of a general trend. Is like the most insightful things seem to be coming from a comedy websites, comedy shows. You know, The Daily Show, Colbert, The Onion, stuff like that. That's kind of like the direction. If I was, I mean, I'm not really in charge of BT's messaging. You know, that's Channel Awesome management. I just kind of hand out reviews and write news. But if I was in charge, I want to make us more like The Daily Show of video game websites, because we can't go head to head with the big boys on straight-laced, button-down news coverage. But I think we can be funnier, and I think we can be more disruptive. We can say things that they can't. Because
I try to be as disruptive as I possibly can. I'm surprised that I haven't been given the axe yet.
Well, that's the thing. Who's going to axe us? Because, I mean, no one knows what we're doing, basically.
Yeah.
It's the Wild West, and it's pretty amazing.
Oh, fantastic.
I don't know. I think if you might talk a little bit about Outlast. You just embargoed, but Red Barrels, the company that made it, ex-Ubisoft and Naughty Dog employees, when I was talking to them, getting you the review code, or, you know, getting us the review code for that, and they're like, oh, Blistered Thumbs, we're familiar with your work.
That's either flattering or scary.
That's what I said in the main chat. I was like, do they hate us? Or, like, I'm not sure. Like, the tone is impossible to judge from an email. I was like, that's either a compliment or we're in serious trouble.
All right. I'll do my best to skirt around it, you know, and not blow anything embargo-wise. But, I mean, I feel free to edit it afterwards, after the fact, so.
Yeah. Embargoes are a funny thing. Like, everyone has their own rules and regulations, and not a lot of them make sense. There's like sometimes they say you can't even say you're reviewing a thing.
Yeah.
Like, I remember in the Saints Row embargo, Aubrey Norris was like, you can tell anybody you want that you're reviewing it. Why would people even make rules? That's fucking stupid. Like, she's just so fucking, like, honest and open in her press releases. It's amazing.
Yeah. I've never actually had the opportunity to work with Aubrey Norris, but I've always wanted to. Pardon me.
Jeez. I wonder how interesting any of that is going to be to listeners. It was like 20 minutes of inside baseball.
Probably not at all.
I could talk about it all day. I just don't think people care that much. So I guess if you want to do your intro, we'll talk about Mega Man, maybe.
You mean Mighty Number 9?
Mega Man 9, yeah.
Yeah, Mega Man 9.
And then maybe that space game you like so much, what we're playing, and then we'll call it a day.
Star Citizen, you mean?
That, I was thinking of the one that Gearbox is not going to ruin.
Oh, Homeworld. Yeah, we could talk about Homeworld. That's something we could do. Just looking through some other. How do you feel about the XCOM DLC not being downloadable for consoles?
It's interesting because when I first saw it, I was like, oh, that looks cool. Some extra weapons, some extra enemy types. Sweet, you know? But how much content must there be in there if it's that big?
Well, the question that I have, that I'm asking, basically, is this indicative of something that, well, no, I suppose, the question pretty much answers itself. Where basically the industry has gotten to the point in time where the hardware that we're running off of currently, at least on consoles, is just not good enough to keep up with the industry.
Indie games these days are like 6 gig installs.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So we could talk about Homeworld, Shipbreakers. We can talk about I guess I can talk a little bit about Outlast.
Can we talk about how bad the zombie effects are in Game of Thrones?
Yeah, I suppose we can do that. Oh shit, son! Sorry, wait. Oh, that's awesome.
What'd you do?
No, I'm just apparently the Oculus Rift VR had its high-def prototype at PAX Prime.
I'm trying to think, is the Mega Man news the only thing that came out of PAX this year? Like, it was basically just a 4-day fucking bender.
Pretty much. I mean, I didn't really see anything else that came out of PAX specifically. Like, did we even get any I don't think there were any trailers that really blew anybody's mind, or...
The XCOM one is the only one that comes to mind.
I know, but even then, that's just DLC, you know? Like...
Yeah. I think PAX is slowly been trending towards more of like a social, like, get-together thing than any kind of industry event. I think that's kind of the way Penny Arcade wants it, too, because they've notoriously been antagonistic with the machine, as it were.
Yeah. Fight the power. Fight the power. Also, Cold Lampin' with flavor.
Yeah, that one went over my head.
That's old school, man. That's how I roll. Have you never heard Cold Lampin' with flavor?
No.
Oh my God! It's Flava Flav's craziest song that I've ever heard in my entire life.
See, to me, he is just a reality TV star. Like, I know he was in. Was it Public Enemy?
Public Enemy.
Yeah, but that was before my time. Like, I've listened to Public Enemy, but I don't think of him as a musician. Like, I don't think of Mark Wahlberg as a musician or a singer.
But he had good vibrations.
He is Marky Mark, but to me, he is just that guy from The Departed who is a total dick.
All right. I'm going to do a dramatic reading for you then about the kind of lyrics that Flava Flav came up with when he was a member of Public Enemy.
Okay.
This is Cold Lampin' with Flavor by Public Enemy. I'm lamping, I'm cold lamping. I got Louis, boy, I'm not tramping. I just came from the crib, you know. I'm on the go. Throw your tank into Metro. Live lyrics from the bank of reality. I kick the flyest dope, maneuver technicality, to a dope track. You want to hike, get your backpack, get out the Wack sack. I'm in my Flavmobile, cold lamping. I took a G upstate, cold camping. To the Poconos, we call a hideaways, a pack of Franks, and a big bag of Frito-Lays. Flavor Flav on a hype tip. I'm your hype drink. Come take a big sip. I'm in position. You can't play me out the pocket. I'll take the dopest beat you got, and I'll rock it. Like chocolate, even vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, sarsaparilla. Flavors are electric. Try me, get a shocker. Didn't I tell you leave Flava Flav alone, knocker? A clock on my chest proves I don't fess. I'm a clock rocker, rocking with the rest. Flav in the house by Chuck D's side. Chuck got the Flavor Flav, don't hide. P.E. crazy, crazy P.E. Making crazy Louis for the shopping spree. You're eating dirt, 'cause you like getting dirt from the graveyard. You put gravy on it. Then you pick your teeth with tombstone chips. Casket cover clips, dead women hips. You do the bump with bones. Nothing but love bones, lifestyles of the living dead. First you live, then you're dead. Died trying to clock what I said. Now I got a murder rap, 'cause I bust your cap with flavor. Pure flavor. We got Magnum Brown, Shusky, Palushki, Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. You could put that in your Don't Know What You Said book. Took, Luke, Yuck, Duck, Wuck.
How long is this?
Dead fucking serious. This is like, hang on, go with me here.
Okay, I'm going. We're all along for the ride now.
Innovative factors by the Flavor Flav. Come and ride the flavor wave. In any year, on any given day, what a brother know? What do flavors say? Why do the record play that way? Primetime merrily. In the day. Right now this radio station is busy. Brain knowledgeably whizzy. Honey drippers, you say you got it. You ain't got no flavor, and I can prove it. Flavor Flav, the flav of all flavors. Onion and garlic French fried potatoes. Make your breath stink, breath fire. Make any onion the best crier. I know it sounds crazy, but it fits perfect. Peter Perfect picked up perfect Peter. Honey dripper, sucker sipper, big dipper, sucker dripper, dripping suckers till it's going out of style, creating suckers for the Flavor Flav pile. Flavor Flav, the flavor of the pile, lamping boy, Medina style, kicking the flavor, getting busy. You're going out, I think you're dizzy. I think you're hungry 'cause you're starving for flavor. Flavor most. Put it on your toast. Eat it and taste it and swallow it down. Imperial flavor gives you the crown of the king cold flavor, the king of all flavors. Rolls and rolls and rolls of life savers. Flavor flavors in everything you eat. 'Cause everything you eat got flavor. Flavor's the first taste you get in the morning. Your breakfast is the flavor. In between that, your lunch. And in between that, your dinner. In between that, your midnight flavor. That's right, boy. Yeah, so,
That's our official theme song now.
Flavor Flav is a madman. I'm glad we can all agree on that.
Yes, 5 listeners who are left.
Oh, come on. At least 5 more would have skipped that whole thing.
That's true. What possessed you to read an entire rap song on the podcast?
Because I just wanted to let you know that it was crazy. I mean, I don't even remember how I got onto the subject, to tell you the truth.
I'm lamping, I'm cold lamping. I got Louis, boy, I'm not tramping. I just came from the crib, you know. I'm on the go, throw your tank in the metro. Live lyrics from the bank of reality. I kick the flies, don't maneuver technicality. Do a dope track, you wanna hike, get your backpack. Get out the whack sack. I'm in my Mobile, cold lamping. I took your D upstate, cold camping.
Today on Tree Review, myself, your host, Johnny Maloney, and my compatriot, loyal companion, Mr. Austin Yorsky, are going to be talking about the oak in as much depth as we can possibly manage, and whether or not the oak actually lives up to its reputation. Now, the oak tree is, of course, one of the most iconic deciduous trees to come out of the magnificent kingdom of nature, used very early on in Eastern European Caucasian cultures for their woodwork, plenty of furniture, of course, a very important part of modality back in the day, with carts, wheels, even in their farming tools as a part of their agrarian society. The oak tree is often considered a very deep staple of the manufacturing capacity that the Western world has become famous for. But the real question on everybody's mind is the oak really all that? Austin, do you think that the oak, as an industry, is really like all that shit? Because I know that you have great respect for the oak as an aesthetic tree. Nobody can deny that the great old oak, the ancient oak, is a magnificent sight to behold. But is that fucker fronting?
I think the oak's bark is worse than its bite. Boom pun! Best pun ever.
Very nice, very nice. And
can we?
Anybody wondering why that I keep Austin with me on Tree Review, there's a perfect example of it right there. So,
can we make like a tree and leaf this topic now?
I hate you, you know that?
Yeah, well, chlorophyll, bitch.
Yeah, it's true. All right, fine. We'll get off it.
I don't know how much you wanted me to say about trees, Johnny.
I'm curious how you feel about the oak tree.
Honestly, I can't differentiate between tree types. Like, that's something I've noticed, because I read a lot of, like 18th century literature, and people are always going on about, the this tree and that tree or another, and it's like, was life so boring hundreds of years ago that people just knew every tree on sight? Because when I go outside, I just see trees. They're all just trees to me.
I think, in spirit of the discussion, I'd like to quote a poem by the very profound Ogden Nash. I think that I shall never see a billboard lovely as a tree. Indeed, unless those billboards fall, I'll never see a tree at all.
Is that it? Are you done? I'm used to your quotes being like 12 fucking minutes long.
No, that's it. That's the whole poem. That's it.
The guy sounds like a hippie.
No, he was actually a he was a humorist. Ogden Nash was a humorist poet. I mean, the joke being, like, because it's playing off of the old, I think it's Blake. I think that I shall never see a poem as lovely as a tree.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was Blake. So, like, the joke being, like, I think that I shall never see a billboard lovely as a tree. Indeed, unless those billboards fall, I'll never see a tree at all.
Except that I'm sure you can see trees all around you, and the billboards aren't in the way of all the trees.
Yes, you see, because I live in Canada, where we don't squander our national resources.
I live in Florida. We're being slowly overtaken by our national resources. I said this earlier. The state of Florida at this point in the season is about 80% spiders by weight, just raw biological tonnage.
What the fuck are you doing still living there?
Dude, I'm afraid to go outside. Like, right outside my apartment in a tree, like, just right there, there's a giant spider. And it's just, every time I go outside, it just eyeballs me. Like, it's just waiting for the day.
I keep trying to tell people that nature is trying to fucking kill you. Like, one thing, I will never fucking understand the Canadian fascination with camping. It's like, you know, there's all this fucking wilderness everywhere, and it's like normal, regular people who should otherwise be intelligent about, like, the chances of their survival are like, well, we've got all this wilderness around, I guess we better use it. Time to pretend to be homeless people for a weekend. And I'm like, no, don't you get it? Fucking lightning, rain, like trees falling, fire. Shit, nature hates you, son!
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe camping is better in other parts of the world, but, I mean, I go to check my mail and I count 5 black widows on the way there and back, so it doesn't seem like the best course of action for my continued longevity.
No, especially not. Move somewhere a little less insect hospitable. Look, global warming is happening, all right? Canada's going to get pretty palatable soon. In 50 years, we're going to be the new California. It's going to be like, pleasant temperatures, seaside property.
I don't know. I was going to make a global warming joke, but someone is going to get bent out of shape. That's one of those things.
I just made a global warming joke.
I know, but remember we talked about evolution once, and that didn't go over well.
So what?
Okay. I don't know. It's just
like, Johnny, you don't get evolution, and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Do you think we're just gonna grow beaks suddenly?
To be honest, that would be the best thing ever if everyone woke up with beaks, because I would just start pecking the shit out of people.
You don't think that would become like that our social constrictures would immediately be like pecking? Your kids are into it. How to tell if your child is a pecker?
Oh my lord!
See, that's a double entendre. That's what you call that right there.
Yep.
Because pecker is also...
Oh, my God.
You all right? It sounded like he fell over there.
I had face mic'd. I hit my mic with my face. Do you want to talk about Keiji Inafune's new Kickstarter and or his niece?
I want to talk about Keiji Inafune's Kickstarter at least. I'm not sure I want to talk about his niece because I know that he doesn't have a niece. Although I'm curious, did you bone her?
Did you read my review of Sweet Fuse? Because I pretty much spelled it out that the game is not. I think it's rated T. The most explicit content is some hardcore hand holding.
All right.
I know.
I'm not interested then. So yeah, let's talk about Keiji Inafune then. For those who don't know, Keiji Inafune is a man. He's a man with a mission. I don't really know what that mission is, but in his spare time, he does video games. He makes them. You may have heard of at least one of them. Mega Man 2?
Just 2.
Does that ring any bells right there? Mega Man 2? If you've heard of Mega Man 2, then maybe, conceivably, you're familiar with Mr. Inafune's work. Well, he started and I love this too, how everybody was like so fucking sick and tired of Kickstarter news until Keiji Inafune decides that he's jumping in on the bandwagon, because yes! Mr. Inafune has started a Kickstarter for, I think, we can basically break it down. What is essentially Mega Man?
Yeah, someone asked him if he was worried about Capcom like suing him, and he said that Mega Man is like him. It's the creative thing that he does. It's like you can't really copyright how he approaches game design. It's like, yeah, but you can copyright blue guy going from left to right shooting robots and taking their powers.
Not really.
You can try.
You can try, but it seems to me that you'd be wasting a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah, there's a lot of different facets to the story. Is it vindicating for Mega Man fans that Capcom should have made a Mega Man before, or they shouldn't have canceled Legends 3 because all this money was clearly there? Is it just because of Kickstarter that this is able to happen?
I basically I said it on my Twitter that this was like watching somebody else steal the dinner that Capcom didn't eat out of spite. It was like Capcom was that like bratty little, someone was like, "Oh, Capcom, we got a plate full of Mega Man. Don't you want it? Don't you want Mega Man?" And Capcom's like, No, I don't. I don't want Mega Man." And it's like, "But you always loved Mega Man in the past. Mega Man helped you grow up big and strong." And it's like, "No, I hate Mega Man now." And then, somebody being like, "Well, fuck it, I'll eat it." And just like stealing that plate right out from under their goddamn nose.
Yeah, it's funded in less than 24 hours. It's over 900,000 at this point. Probably going to get much higher before it's all said and done. If you are a Capcom executive, are you in the regret stage right now?
I think so. Absolutely, I think so. I mean, because giving people a Mega Man game, honestly, just giving people a Mega Man game probably would not cost that much money. Probably wouldn't. Maybe you'd get mired in the whole concept of, awesome design and be like, well, we need to get Kiefer Sutherland as the voice of Mega Man, and we need to get Sir Ian McKellen as the voice of Dr. Light, and Dr. Wily has to be voiced by... you'd probably get, mired down in design, but when it really comes down to it, bitches just want to play Mega Man.
Pretty much, yeah. It's not like it's Rayman Legends beautiful or anything. Mega Man is pretty much just pure design. It's something that, indie developers are cranking out at a fairly decent clip right now.
Yeah, it's all mechanics. And those mechanics are doing well in the industry right now. The success of side-scrollers, I don't think, has ever been as pronounced as it is now, as it has been since,
the NES days?
Yeah, back in the 1980s, man. It seems as though that people... I don't want to say people, because that makes it sound like, everybody is at fault. It's one of these things as well that and I might draw back on this topic a little later when I talk about Star Citizen, because the space flight game also suffered a similar fate, of where it was the industry got obsessed with these bigger, more flashy, amazing, higher tier, higher training, higher expensive products, because all this money started coming into these certain titles, these franchises. And it was they almost mistook that market shift as being well, everybody loves first-person military shooters now, so therefore they must hate side-scrolling platformers.
Yeah, it's the all-or-nothing approach. It's anytime something gets popular, everything else must be abandoned.
Yeah, and it's not as if these fans disappeared. It's not
as if new ones weren't born.
Yeah, it's not like people are well, one of my favorite side-scrolling platformers used to be Mega Man 2, but now, fuck that shit. People are still hey, these games are awesome. And yeah, games like Super Meat Boy, games like Dust Force, games like fucking Flyin', games like Braid, Rogue Legacy is a new one. Yeah, it's just they're Rayman. You said it yourself. Rayman Legends, Rayman Origins. These goddamn games.
They've never been better.
They've never been better. They've never been more popular. They've never been more bankable. You can easily tell because of how saturated the genre is. People make these games because for one of a couple of reasons. One, they really love them. Two, they actually sell.
Yeah. It's funny because way back when this Kickstarter thing started, you made the point that this really wasn't an opportunity for unknowns to get a chance. It was for old cult favorites to redo the thing that made them famous.
Yeah.
this is like the most blatant example of this I can even imagine, because Mega Man is the fucking OG,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And Kickstarter, like, this is what it was made for.
Absolutely. It's about mobilizing on an audience that already exists. And I'm thrilled as shit that Keiji Inafune knows it. I backed it.
It seems like Japan is finally getting on the Kickstarter bandwagon. Like, I hadn't seen a lot of that, but the Project Phoenix by a bunch of JRPG devs got funded in like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think we might see a lot more of that, which will be interesting.
It spells, as far as I'm concerned, it spells really good things for the Japanese game development sector, to tell you the truth, because I know that everybody was really pissed about what Phil Fish said about, Japanese game development and things like that. And I'm not going to say anything about game development from Japan, but I will say this. I will say that I feel that the technology that the companies that are publishing and making games, that are developing games, and even the platforms, I feel like they're behind the times. I feel like they're kind of like catching up. They're mired in tradition, it feels like, and I don't know, this is good news to me. This is good news, because if Keiji Inafune can just be like, I'm making a game on Kickstarter, then maybe we'll start to see, I'd love to see Nintendo embrace the internet a little bit more, embrace a little bit more relationship with its fans, because they are still that odd man out, and I got nothing but respect for Nintendo. I love what they do it well, and they stick to their guns, but god damn it, I'm not sure it's enough.
Yeah, I mean, there are problems with both Eastern and Western game development traditions and practices right now, so...
Oh, I'm not saying Western game development best, Eastern game development terrible. I'll pick on everybody. Everybody's a fuck as far as I'm concerned. I'm really glad that this Kickstarter is succeeding. It's kind of a fun take that to Capcom. It's him doing something that he seems to want to do, and it's giving fans what they want. It's a win-win for pretty much everyone. But it is a shame that Kickstarter is still being used to fund people who are already successful and to make things that we kind of already have. Like, there are 30 Mega Man games, so it's not like this is going to be some kind of paradigm shift, unfortunately. Well, I think the problem that you have when you're going into Kickstarter as a new developer is that you have to think about what you have as collateral, because what you are essentially asking for is you're asking people for a loan. And I don't want to sound like the man. I don't want to sound like the banker, okay? But if somebody you don't know walks up to you and says, hey, I've got an idea that I think you'd really like. You just need to pay me for it beforehand. There's got to be something. And the one that I'm going to point to as being like, this is how you do it, is FTL. Now, despite the fact that the guys involved in FTL were, quote-unquote, industry veterans, they had worked at, several studios, but they'd never made a game on their own. They'd never done their own game. They came out and they said, listen, we'd really like to do this space exploration-based roguelike. This is what it's going to be about. This is how it's going to play, and so on. And people like myself, I was really attracted to the idea. I went in and said, okay, well, how am I know I'm going to like the game? How am I going to know that you're going to deliver the game the way you say? And do you know what they did? Do you know how they had managed it?
Not specifically, weren't they? I mean, wasn't it just a really clear and articulate pitch?
No.
No?
No. See, they had actually had a preliminary version that they had submitted to the IGF.
Uh-huh.
And you could actually play an early demo of FTL. Like, while the Kickstarter was on, you could play an early demo on the now lapsed service OnLive. They had a big, IGF demo expo one month where it was play all the IGF finalists, play all the IGF submissions, blah, 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 for 1 month. And you could log into OnLive and you could play FTL for 30 minutes. So they had a proof of concept. They had something you could get your hands on. So if you were interested, you could be like, hey, why not? You know, the problem is that you can't just go to people and say, hey, we are 4 guys who live in a small apartment together who all know coding, and we'd love to make this game, but, you know, we haven't even started yet. So if you pay us money, we can do it. You know, Keiji Inafune has collateral in his name. He exists as a force in the gaming industry. You can kind of say, oh, Keiji Inafune, I've played the games that this guy has made. A, I know that he makes games. B, I know that he makes good games. C, when he tells me he wants to make a good game, I believe him.
D, fuck Capcom.
Yeah, you know, like, sometimes, like, that's probably enough for many of the people watching, but as far as I'm concerned, you can still use Kickstarter to start up a new game, to make something that you would really love to do. The problem is that you can't just be like, hey, pay for everything. There has to be an initial investment. There's got to be something that you can show to people, because like anybody will tell you that if you show up at an investment capital firm with an idea for an invention, but no proof of concept, no blueprints, no prototype, anything like that, they will tell you to get the fuck lost. It's sad, but this is business. This is how business works. And you can't just, right out of the gate, fresh out of programming school, ask a bunch of strangers to pay for your dream.
Have you been following I'm trying to think what they're called, the Precursor Games attempt to kickstart Shadows of the Eternals or something?
Yep, Shadows of the Eternals.
That was a complete and total clusterfuck. They failed twice, despite having big names attached and a track record, because of kind of negative.
Yeah, well, the track record runs both ways.
Yeah, they have baggage, and even with a big name, like, people are savvy enough not to even invest a little bit of money in questionable things like that. Like, as soon as investing and putting your money where, you know, your mouth is became kind of this public thing, everyone has become a miserly, evil publisher that we all hate.
Well, you know, like, let's be fair here that Dennis Dyack does come with some baggage to him.
Oh, clearly I would never give him my money. I just think it's funny that if we had seen a publisher, you know, do that to them, we probably would have seen plenty of people who decried it. But now that it's us and them, we don't want to touch it.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, you know, but again, it pays to. It does pay mind to what I was saying before in the whole concept that, like, when you go into a Kickstarter, basically your reputation is your currency.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, when a person dies and they have a whole lot of debt, that debt gets passed on. Just like if they have a whole lot of money, that money gets passed on as well. You know, so if you decide to start a Kickstarter and everybody's like, "Hey, I hear that guy's a fuck," you're not gonna get it. You aren't. When it comes to crowdfunding, like, your fucking reputation is your most valuable resource. And what I'm trying to say here about people coming right out of the gate for crowdfunding and being like, I'd really like to make this game. There's a ratio. There's like, hey, I'd really like to make a game. I think I can do it in a couple of months. I'm working a job right now, so like $5,000 would do it. You know, that's 100 people paying an MSRP of like $49.99 right there. So that's reasonable if nobody knows you. But, you know, if everybody knows you and you're like asking for $500,000 and everybody knows you for all the wrong reasons, sorry. I feel like I'm not making any sense right now.
See, that's the thing. People don't come to this podcast for us to make sense. Like, as long as we are slightly on topic a little bit, we can pretty much just fly by the seat of our pants. It's all good.
Okay. All right. You'd think I'd get used to that 70 episodes in. But no. But yeah, so if you haven't heard, anyways, Mighty Number 9. That's,
did we ever say the name of it that entire time?
I don't think we did. I think we just called it Keiji Inafune's new Mega Man game. But yeah, the name of the Kickstarter project is The Mighty Number 9. You'll be happy to know, as well, any enthusiasts who haven't had the cojones to pony up a little bit of cash. You all right? You okay? You just
Me?
Yeah, you. You made a noise when I said cojones.
No, I think that was a yawn.
Oh, okay. But yeah, people that don't have the sand to donate to projects that they don't think are going to make it, the Mighty Number 9 has already exceeded its goal of $900,000. And if it gets as high as $2.5 million, you might even see it on consoles. Yeah, that's right. It's a Mega Man game for the PC right now.
The easiest to develop for. You don't got to pay licensing fees to the console manufacturers.
Mm-hmm. It's true. It's not as though it's going to tax your NVIDIA PhysX 3D Oculus Rift VR or Asus Stroke Vision.
I obviously don't want any major, like EA or Activision publishers to just go like crowdfunding. But for riskier projects, I think it would be, I wouldn't hold it against them because it's kind of a glorified pre-order system in a sense, not obviously like legally binding or anything, but if you're not sure if you're going to make your investment back, and then let the fans speak with their money.
All I know is that Star Citizen eclipsed a $17 million mark this week.
That is fucking ludicrous.
And Electronic Arts has been sitting on the Wing Commander license for years.
I bet they feel even stupider than Capcom.
Probably. I hope so. Well, again, I said I was going to draw back to this earlier, where I basically say, like the last real fucking serious spaceflight game that got made was probably Free Space 2. I mean, the X games have come out, and then there's a couple of other ones as well that Good Old Game sells. And then there's a few ones that you can buy that have, like, mouse controls and things like that. Like Minor Wars 2081 came out last year and things like that. But, like, Free Space 2 was the last, like... It was the tits, is what it was. It was the dog's bollocks. It was a multiplayer, like, epic, incredible, amazing-looking, just brilliant fucking spaceflight game. And then apparently after that, because everybody was playing first-person shooters, nobody likes spaceflight games anymore. Hey, Chris Roberts just raised $17 million for one. I wonder where those people came from.
There's no market for the thing that we just don't want to make.
Exactly. I don't understand it. And this is what I'm talking about. I've spoken about in the past the whole concept of the middle tier game.
Mm-hmm.
Of where it's like everybody wants to make the AAA multi-billion-dollar, we've got all the Hollywood actors, we borrowed George Clooney's face and it's voiced by Ryan Gosling, and then Brad Pitt rubbed up against one of the developers at one point in time, and maybe Edward Norton sneezed in the vague direction of the development studio.
Can we just call this David Cage syndrome?
Yeah, David Cage syndrome. There we go, right? Everybody...
I want to be Hollywood so bad.
Everybody wants it. Everybody wants it so bad. And then you've got these, like, guys who program out of their basement these little, like, glitchy pixel side-scroller or old-school RPGs, and, it's like, would you please buy my game? It's only $3.
And now that guy is set for life, and Square Enix posted losses of $20 fucking million.
Yeah, it's like, where's the middle ground here? Where's the game that you're willing to spend, like, $1 million on, or like, $1.5 million on, or something like that, and then release it and, mitigate your price a little bit to be like, hey, so this isn't going to have any Hollywood actors, but it's going to look better than something that you programmed in your basement. Maybe you want to play it. We think it might be neat. Try it.
That's actually, like, the thing I'm most excited about for the next generation of consoles. Like, if you've been seeing all the things Sony's been saying, they have, like...
I've seen everything that Sony's been saying. I get raging erections when Sony starts talking about what they have plans for.
Like, 100 indie developers on board. It's just a disgustingly huge amount of content already lined up. None of it is a huge financial risk. It's just so much value on the platform. And then, of course, they've got their AAA blockbusters. They got the Infamous. They got the Uncharted probably somewhere down the line. But They're not betting the farm on it.
No, but the thing is, what I want to see is I want to see something more in the middle there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, I want to see a game that has, like, an indie spirit to it, but has a little bit of backing behind it.
Oh, Johnny, you're going to love a game I played this week. I'm so excited to talk about it.
I'm sure I will. But, like, yeah, you know, I want to see a little bit of money that... Yeah, and not much money. It doesn't have to be, like, fucking millions and millions and millions of dollars. You know, just like, what if you take a cool idea, you see a good proof of concept, you go, that looks neat. I'll bet that could be good with a little bit of fleshing out. And then put money into it. Like, that's the gap that Kickstarter has filled. That's the thing. It's taken ideas and proof of concept and basically said, listen, we could make something kind of like, you know, small and budget and really, like, a bit ghetto.
Ghetto gaming.
Ghetto, yeah, you know, ghetto gaming. And we could do that, but if we can secure a bit of funding from you, the player, for this game that we want to make, you can look over all the shit, and if you want to play this game, you can give us a little bit of your money, then we can make a game that's better than that, but not necessarily like fucking William H. Macy as the computer that's going to take over the world, and, I don't know, Jason Bateman.
This trend has to be coming to an end. Like we're walking over the corpses of Medal of Honor in Army of Two and Lost Planet and every would-be AAA bomb.
Can I just say though now that I really want a game that has Jason Bateman and William H. Macy in it? I'm not sure what that game would be about, but I'll bet it would be fucking funny.
Voice acting is really only important to such a small amount of games. I think there are a lot of games that would be improved by excising it completely.
Yep. No, I agree. I'm talking like I want an adventure game with William H. Macy and Jason Bateman, because adventure games can be funny in ways that a lot of other games can't. Just ask Monkey Island.
Indeed.
Anyway, let us remove ourselves from this topic. It grows stale.
What topic would you like to move to?
I'm not really sure. I can barely remember what ones that we had actually planned for the episode.
Well, the only thing I can think of is that Gearbox and that Gearbox story.
Yeah, we can talk about that. I guess I can talk about that because I'll bet you don't give two tugs of a dead dog's cock about it.
I will listen.
All right. So, regular listeners of the podcast may remember once, many moons ago, a company we're all very familiar with, one that I hold dear to the part of my heart where my hate comes from.
The left ventricle, I believe.
Yeah. Known as Gearbox Software, decided to do something that got me angry.
Aliens, Colonial Marines.
No, it was actually after that.
Something else?
Yeah, something else after that. And Aliens, Colonial Marines wasn't so much anger as it was disgust. They bought the rights to Homeworld. Now, for those who aren't familiar or not regular listeners of the podcast, Homeworld was a fully three-dimensional real-time strategy game that put Relic Entertainment on the map. It took place in space. You got control of all axes, X, Y, and Z. And it was pretty fucking fantastic. It kind of redefined the concept of what real-time strategies were for the time and paved way for new ground for a lot of other games that have come since then. Games like Endless Space, games like not Twilight Imperium. Twilight Imperium is a board game, and it didn't, I can't remember the name of that goddamn game. And now I'm trying to remember another game name, and I can't do it.
You failed us.
I am. I'm fucking failing really hard right now. I remember the subtitle is Rebellion. Star. There's Sword of the Stars. Sword of the Stars was the first one that I was thinking of. The one that I was... Sins of a Solar Empire. There we go. I'm okay. And there was also the other one that I was thinking of, which is called, like, the Jupiter Incident or something like that. No, the Jupiter Incident is a It's another fucking board game. My God, I am losing at games.
The Jupiter Incident sounds like a progressive rock band.
Now I need to start a band called the Jupiter Incident. No, the Nexus. It is the Jupiter Incident. Nexus, the Jupiter Incident. Good God, man. My brain is like upside down right now or something like that. In any case, Homeworld paved the way for like a lot of new interesting looks at the real-time strategy genre by adding an extra dimension. Hey. Gearbox bought it, and you might remember that I was out of sorts about it.
I think the word I would use is inconsolable.
Yeah, inconsolable might be a good word. Frothing at the mouth, perhaps.
You punched a baby.
I punched a baby. Ranting, raving, I punched a baby. The baby was asleep. It didn't see me. Nobody knows. I'm okay. The baby, on the other hand, probably has a lot of psychological damage, but whatever. One of my major points of contention was, what the fuck is Gearbox Software doing with a real-time strategy IP in its pocket, because these motherfucking assholes who can't even really make a first-person shooter properly are going to try an RTS? No. Well, good news dropped this week. For people not in the know, many of the original creators of Homeworld, who have actually long since left Relic Entertainment, had started up their own development studio called, I believe, Blackbird Interactive. So Blackbird was working on a game called Hardware Shipbreakers. And Shipbreakers was going to be a game. There hasn't really been much seen of it yet, but it was going to be a real-time strategy game about a bunch of people trapped on a planet that essentially acted as a spaceship graveyard for one reason or another. They're holding their cards pretty close to their chest, you know. Well, unbeknownst to me, after Gearbox had acquired the Homeworld license, they approached Blackbird and basically offered the guys who had created Homeworld their own IP back. Not giving it to them, but they've entered into a partnership. Gearbox has entered into a partnership with Blackbird and injected a bunch of funds into them in order to basically transform Hardware Shipbreakers into Homeworld Shipbreakers.
So, best case scenario?
Best case scenario, it's fucking awesome.
But I'm saying for this whole, the Gearbox acquisition, like, you were pretty much resigned to this being the worst thing ever, but
yeah.
This is about as much as you could have hoped for.
This is as much as I could have hoped for. I mean, and they've stated that they're still getting their, like, HD remakes on track, and we're gonna see them on Steam, and we're gonna see them on Good Old Games, and I'm taken aback by this. Like, Gearbox did something that I'm a fan of.
They can't, come on, they can't screw everything up. That's just statistically impossible.
It's true, you know. Like, I mean, I'm beginning to remember the company that I grudgingly offered a little bit of respect and love for when I saw what they had done with Borderlands 2. But yeah, I'm kind of amazed. Like, I did not expect Randy Pitchford and Gearbox to do something this smart. And I know that sounds insulting, but I didn't expect it.
Just being honest.
I don't know what else to say. You know, like, I imagined Gearbox Software making a game about Homeworld where you play as a space marine that gets, like, flown into a ship, and then you shoot dudes. But they didn't do that. They actually actively sought out the people responsible for making the Homeworld games and said, listen, we can back you with a little capital, and we would like you guys to make a Homeworld game. And they were like, well, we're making this game already that's kind of Homeworld. And they're like, great, how about we make it a Homeworld game?
There's certainly worse ways that could have turned out.
I just, you know, like, when guys in the industry say, fucking, I love video games, I'm always like, yeah, I'll bet you do. I'll bet you love watching what video games put into your bank account. But I've always said that it's a little difficult to watch Randy Pitchford talk about video games and not actually be like, yeah, okay, this guy probably loves video games. And this just kind of cements that for me. I'm like, wow, not only do I believe that Randy Pitchford loves video games, but I actually believe that Randy Pitchford loved Homeworld.
Probably did.
And that kind of puts him closer to being in my corner. I'm still not ready to give him like the team jersey or anything like that.
I wouldn't turn your back on him yet.
No, absolutely. I'm not, no. They've got to make at least, like, as a studio, they have to make at least 2 more games that are good, and one of them better not be a Borderlands game.
I'm sure there's already. I bet they're pretty far in development for Borderlands 3.
Yeah,
and they're still making DLC for 2, but there's no way that they just let that field lie fallow.
I'm not optimistic though, because Too Furious for Führer is still going to be coming out, and
someday.
I'm not optimistic about that one.
That might be an XCOM declassified situation where it's too late.
Yeah.
It's too late to cut your losses, so we'll probably just get a subpar thing in a year or 2.
Yeah, probably.
Video games.
God damn them.
Johnny.
Yo.
I know you've been playing video games this week, and I know because I forced them on you.
Because you made me.
I did. That was a clusterfuck.
I think it's particularly funny because I was like all ready to step up to the plate. I'm like, Austin, if you need to lateral to me, I will run up the field. Look at me, I'm using football terms. I'm like, I will go for it. I will get that touchdown. I will at least get us a first down. Like, you throw me that ball if you have to. And then you're like, no, I think I'm cool. And then 2 days later, you were like, it's all fucked.
Everything went fucking sideways. Yeah. There's probably more politics and bullshit here than listeners want to know, but it all comes down to the fact that I seriously needed Johnny's help, and he came through for me, and now you can talk about horror games.
Yeah. So I haven't listened to last week's podcast. Did we leave the bit in about the rest of the staff not having the
computer
to do it, or otherwise, the chutzpah?
I think I left that in, yeah.
All right. Well, so last week we discussed about how one of the drawbacks that we have on Blistered Thumbs right now is because we don't work for a company that provides us with all these things and whatnot. A lot of the review titles that we wind up acquiring are delivered to people upon the permission as to whether or not they own the platform that we get a review title for. And that's not so bad when it's consoles, because everybody, a console is a standardized piece of hardware. Every Xbox 360 comes off the line, presumably, in the same shape. But when you're dealing with computer products, when you're dealing with PC games, that can be a touch more complicated. And many of the contributors for Blistered Thumbs have junk heaps for, just your word processing, your emails, you're looking at porn on the internet, so much looking at porn on the internet. Yes, I'm talking to you, Sean.
I mean, I was going to make that joke, sure.
But, so when we get PC review titles, and again, this isn't always such a big deal because, these days there's a lot of cross-console, releases coming out. So your AAA games, like your Splinter Cell Blacklist, your XCOM Bureau Deassified, you can get them for mainly, whoever you have free to review the copy. And it's like, well, if I'm going to review that, then this would be the best for me. But unfortunately, sometimes that squeezes certain titles out. Titles like Outlast, and Amnesia, A Machine for Pigs, which is what exactly happened this past week. So Austin, in a panic of fear and flop sweat, although oddly enough, not because you'd played the games yet, just
how coincidental or fortuitous, I'm not sure, is it that those two so similar PC exclusive first-person horror games are releasing within days of each other?
It's a little unnerving. I mean,
it's eerie.
and I say unnerving because I've had to play both of them. Unfortunately, at the time of this recording and when it goes up, I am still under embargo, so I can't really say much about either of them. But I would like to talk a little bit about Outlast, because between the two of them, Outlast is probably the lesser known.
Mm-hmm.
Outlast is actually being designed by a French-Canadian development company called Red Barrels, who is mainly made up of ex-Ubisoft staff. Ubisoft, if you want to be a little bit more rounded in your vowels. And it's a game about terror. It's a game that takes place in current day, where you play investigative journalist Miles Upshur, who receives an anonymous tip that a large American conglomerate corporation known as the Murkoff Corporation has reopened a long since closed down, dilapidated mental asylum called the Mount Massive Asylum. And the anonymous tip states that the Murkoff Corporation isn't necessarily bettering humanity there. It's implied in much of the game literature that Murkoff is all about profits and exploiting poor overseas populations and countries in order to increase productivity, and it's never even like fully illustrated what Murkoff does. They just seem to be one of these uber cores that like they have their hands in like pharmaceuticals, and
I believe they're a subsidiary of the Umbrella Corporation.
Yeah, that would be probably the best way to parallel it. So you go into this asylum to find the truth, which is always a noble pursuit, but not necessarily a sane one. And once inside, the aforementioned terror starts.
As you do.
As you do. It's a first-person game. It's sort of, I guess, in the vein of Amnesia, The Dark Descent, and as far as I'm concerned, much maligned Slender. You have no weapons. You are armed with a camcorder. It is interesting a little bit because you can gather this from the trailers that they show and whatnot, that the camcorder has a night vision mode in it as well. So as opposed to being armed with a flashlight, which illuminates your surroundings, the camcorder with the night mode is a slightly more private affair.
It's the Blair Witch Amnesia project.
Yeah, kind of is. So yeah, I'm not really allowed to say that much about, what's in the game apart from what you can see on, trailers and screenshots and things like that. But embargo lifts on the 4th, so you're going to see a review from me on Friday, I believe. Or no, Wednesday. It's going to be Wednesday. Excuse me.
Yes. It's edited and scheduled, ready to go.
Yep. I've finished it. But again, I think I'm going to call back to something that you said previously, Austin, was that the more faith that a publisher or developer tends to have in their product, the more likely they are for people to get a look at it, to want to see it. So they're perfectly willing for people to actually dig their teeth in for increasing periods of time before the game actually releases.
That's going to be a running theme today.
Take that as you will.
I think, real quick, I just wanted to jump in here. What do you think about the whole asylum, like the evil asylum trope? Because I just saw a story about there's a I don't want to get the name wrong. It's like the Asylum Jam or something. There's a game development thing that they're hosting about making horror games that don't stigmatize mental illness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's called the Asylum Jam. Outlast is kind of like the poster boy for that cliche, and I don't want to obviously get into spoilers or anything, but I've said before that I think someday we'll look back on a lot of horror games like we look back on like Birth of a Nation, For those who don't know, Birth of a Nation is a film that is highly regarded, despite it being about the KKK.
Yeah.
Basically, Johnny, I'm asking you to defend video games analogous to the KKK. Can you defend the KKK, Johnny?
Not in a contemporary setting. The only defense I have in an anachronistic setting is people didn't know any better.
So you think that's what we're going to look back on all these games where mental patients try to stab people and go, well, it was a simpler time.
Well, first of all, I want to remove Outlast from this category, because to say anything about that is to make assumptions about it or to infer that it has like these elements in it. And I'm not comfortable with people assuming that that's what Outlast is about.
Outlast, from what I understand, is a kind of a book cover conundrum.
A book cover? When
like we're judging it by the cover.
Yeah.
And all we have right now is a pretty cliche cover, and maybe that is not a correct picture, but that's unfortunately what we have.
Yeah.
To work with.
That is the point that I'm going to operate off of right now, and I'm going to try and elucidate my thoughts on the matter without giving too much away. Whenever I play games that happen in haunted asylums or in broken down asylums or what have you that still have madmen running around in them and things like that, my immediate reaction is, oh my god, I'm so tired of this.
Yeah, it's not even that it's offensive, it's just that it's played out. Yeah.
And it can come across as being offensive sometimes. I guess the one defense that I might offer up to this whole concept of it being ooh, it's a broken down asylum and the patients are running wild and blah, is that I'm kind of okay, truth be told, I feel that if an asylum ever really got to that point in time, the only people that would really stick around are probably the really crazy territorial ones.
I'm no mental health expert, so I'm gonna...
That's my best defense right there. That's it right there. Then I'm okay, if you want to make a game about a crazy haunted asylum that's got crazy people that are stabbing people in the neck and eating their eyeballs and things like that, okay, fine, Mm-hmm. But it's... Yeah,
there are undoubtedly, people who are violently deranged, but it's my understanding that it's 1 in 10 people have mental illness or something. They'll develop one over their lifetime, and 0.01% of that are violent.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It's stigmatizing, and I think that someday we will look back and kind of be embarrassed.
Well, probably. I mean, whether or not embarrassed or, again, we'll just kind of be they didn't know any better.
Mm-hmm. But once again, the thing you take offense to is the laziness.
It is. It's incredibly lazy. It is superbly lazy. It excels in its laziness, pretty much. So I'd love to be able to say more. I would love to be able to say more, but every time I play a game that it's go to this mental asylum, I'm why?
Yeah. I think we talked about this when you and, was it your brother, you made a pact?
Yeah.
About haunted areas?
Haunted areas. It was after I think we played Fatal Frame, where it was the girl shows up at this fucking horrible wrecked-ass Japanese mansion. And it's she goes wandering around, and it becomes fucking apparent pretty quickly. Holy shit, there are ghosts everywhere.
It's fuck this, I'm going to Disney World.
Yeah, the agreement is, you know what? Johnny's a pretty smart guy. If he knew that there were fucking ghosts here, he would leave. He is in the closest bar getting loaded. I will find him there.
Yep. So you're going to need to wait for the Outlast review to get the full rest of this conversation. But I just thought it was an interesting point, especially because the Asylum Jam is now a thing that is happening with real people.
I think that's pretty interesting, actually.
Yeah, I'll leave a link under the cast to that.
Less interesting than Boob Jam, but...
Do people know about Boob Jam?
I don't think we've mentioned Boob Jam.
Was that in direct response, or did it just happen to coincide with the Dragon's Crown thing?
I'm not sure.
Because basically what happened was people were joking about their overreaction to Dragon's Crown, and people were like spitballing ideas about like the actual like embodied experience of having breasts, like the back pain and the mammograms and all of the terrible like shit that people have to deal with that isn't reflected in the power fantasies and objectification of modern video games. And basically the development community came together, and I'm not sure if they're actually going to go through with it. They might be, but last I heard, it was like an idea for a boob jam where people got together and made games about boobs and, bra shopping and stuff like that. Just kind of playing up all the things that no one ever thinks about when you're ogling.
I think about it when I'm ogling.
You're just looking at it, you're like, man, I bet she needs a back brace.
Pretty much, yeah. Jeez. Lady, when you get pregnant for the first time, you don't even know.
Stretch marks.
Yeah, it's going to be awful. I'm sorry, sweetheart.
Okay. So you can't talk about Amnesia, a Machine for Pigs, unfortunately.
No.
But it's a thing, and you're playing it.
You betcha.
And your review will be on the 9th?
Yeah, that's right.
Next week. So.
Although I'm trying to, it'll probably show up on the 8th, actually, because I think the 9th is I think it's the 9th in Central European time. So it might be like in the afternoon on the 8th.
Time zones are the worst.
Yeah, time zones are pretty fucking awful. Although, no, wait, it's 9 a.m., so it'll probably be up, like, really fucking early in the morning, excuse me, because I maybe at, like, midnight. I think, because CET right now is, like, 9 hours ahead. So I think I think it'll be, like, right at midnight on the 9th. And this is, like, it's fucking awful, because nobody knows with any reliable data what fucking time zone the Blistered Thumb server is on.
I think we're Central because we were running on
Central. Yeah.
Yeah, we were running on Joe's clock, and we're just kind of stuck with that, which is fun because I'm in Eastern and the site's in Central, and most of the industry is in Pacific because California. So I got to convert everything 3 times. It's a hassle.
Yeah, it's pretty fucked up.
Were you playing anything else?
Not really. Not really. Star Citizen, which I was talking about before, did release their hangar module this week, which isn't really playing, but it's basically a look at where people are going to be storing their ships. Because crowdsourcing, you buy in at certain packages, and you can even like buy specific spaceships to like house separately from your packages. But I contributed probably more to Star Citizen than any other crowdfund that I have contributed to, and as a result, I got so many spaceships. I think I have 5. I think they've given me 5 spaceships off the bat, and yeah, the hangar module is basically you get to like you download it, you walk into your hangar, and you can like get into your spaceships. And, like, just wander around and shit like that. And I'm so fucking excited. I'm serious. I don't think there's any game that I'm more excited about than Star Citizen. I'm just like, I'm champing at the bit to get my hands on this goddamn game.
I think it's going to be like Eve, where it's going to be, like, impenetrable to outsiders, but absolutely nuts inside.
Well, this is the thing about it. And I was talking with my brother the other day about it, and going back to talk about Free Space, where like the last serious fucking like multiplayer spaceflight game we got was like Free Space 2 and X-Wing Alliance, and they came out the same year. And you would think after that the genre would elevate and become like new things and create, but no, like ever since then, the only spaceflight games that we've had delivered to us have been single player. And, you know, some of them have been good. They haven't been great, but, yeah. So, like, Star Citizen just, like, fucking bombs out of nowhere and is just like, yeah, you know, we kind of want to make a game like EVE Online, except you need a joystick. And I'm like, I want that. Because the thing that bothered me about EVE Online, I loved how impenetrable the economics were and how, like, it was just, like, it was this world that you could just fucking, like, get into and be like, holy shit, this is so strange, you know, like, and reading all these stories about corporate heists and, like, assassinations and fucking wars and, like, insurance scams and things like that, I'm like, wow, That's amazing. But
Yeah.
but in the end, it's still just like it's just like World of Warcraft. It feels, like select your target and press the button, and then you'll keep attacking it, and then you have some like special ability hotkeys that you use. I'm like, no, I want a ship where I fucking get to use my joystick and my fucking afterburners and fucking I'm so stoked for this. And I got to wander around my hangar and look at all my ships, and they are badass. It's gonna be awesome.
I'm so happy for you, Johnny. It's like the new feature in the new Pokemon game where you can pet all the Pokemon.
Oh.
That's how I imagine you walking into your hangar is like.
I sat in all the chairs.
Was it real Corinthian leather?
Nope, dude, it was space fabricated. It was future leather.
That's Corinthian leather is like the most obscure reference I've ever made on the show. Anyway, Jonathan.
Austin-athan.
Austin-athan.
Austin-athan. Seeing as how I can't talk about the other game that I've been playing.
Yes.
What have you been up to this week?
My Pokemon Rumble U review is on the site. I don't know if you've seen it, but it really made me appreciate Skylanders.
I'm sorry, I've been face deep in a machine for pigs.
Yeah, I don't know. I said in my review, I basically could have copied and pasted the review I did for the game that preceded it. It's the same thing, but with Skylander toys, and the toys aren't that. They're basically like gumball machine quality. Like,
that sucks.
It does. I was looking over my Skylanders collection. I wouldn't really call it a collection. I have 5, but I was like, wow, these are looking super good right now.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's a shame. I don't know why we can't just get a good action RPG out of the Pokemon series. By all rights, that should be a runaway success. But it continues to be a budget, obscure, digital-only thing.
I got a great idea. Let's go to Kickstarter.
Just switch out everyone in Torchlight with Pokemon. It can't be that difficult.
There's probably a mod.
Yeah, there better be. But yeah, I played that. I'm also writing my review for Killzone Mercenary. I finished that, but I also previewed it, so I can talk about anything I did, I guess, in the preview, because that was published a while ago. So I don't know how much a review is even worth at this point. It's been in beta for a while. Everyone kind of knows the score. It is a faithful and surprisingly accurate recreation of the console Killzone experience for better and worse, which means, it's a gunmetal gray, modern, gritty shooter and all of the negative things that entails. But it's also like a super faithful, portable version of that, which is kind of cool. And if that's what you're into, that's what you're getting.
It's on the Vita, right?
Yes. It's a Vita. This is the promise that Sony's always made about their handhelds. That it's the PSP and the PS Vita were supposed to be portable versions of the console experience, and that just has never been true. But this time, I think it is. I think they really captured what it's like to play Killzone. Some people might find that not as impressive as others, I suppose.
I confess, I'm not really blown out of my seat.
Killzone has always been kind of the little engine that could. It's no Halo, it's no Call of Duty, it's no Battlefield. No one's clamoring for it, but it gets there, it gets the job done, and I assume it doesn't lose any money because they keep making them.
Yo.
But yeah, I guess if you're in the market for Killzone portably, you will be super jazzed about it. The last game I played, and which is embargoed, and it ties back into what we were talking about earlier, about how if a publisher knows a game is good, they will give it to you a month ahead of time, and the embargo will go up way ahead of the release date. That is a game I'm playing called Puppeteer, developed by Sony Computer Entertainment Japan.
Yes, I saw Taylor's Shinkara episode on the Puppeteer demo.
Yep. It comes out on the 14th, but they sent it to me at the end of last month, and the embargo is this Wednesday. So couple weeks ahead of release of the embargo and of a full month for review. So they know what they're working with. And it's a $40 retail 2D platformer. This is kind of what we were talking about earlier about the middle ground, knowing that you don't need to hit the $60 price point if you have the spirit of an indie but the polish of a AAA. it's everything we were talking about earlier, and I wish I could say more, but you should watch Taylor's video. I'll link it under the cast. It's something that everyone should know about.
Yeah.
And I wish I could say more.
I can say everything. Yeah. Watch the fucking video. Watch Taylor's video. It looks spectacular.
Oh yeah, well, I can just talk about Taylor's video and pretend like that's all I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's got a creative vision that I think is the closest thing that I could equate it to was maybe a little bit of Little Big Planet, but it appears to have even more spirit than that.
Yeah, it's got the texture of a Little Big Planet. You can see the ridges and the stitches and the scratches. It's feels like you reach out and touch it. It's so fucking gorgeous. You know, it's hard to just show through screenshots. That's why I keep saying about Taylor's video.
Yeah, watch the video.
And even then, you're only getting it in YouTube resolution. If you have a big ass 4000K TV, you're melts your fucking retinas. It looks good.
I have a really nice TV.
I'm proud of you, Johnny.
I know, me too.
Is it too late to start thinking about unseating Journey as everyone's go-to indie game?
Is it too late for that? No.
Because I mean that came out last year, and everyone's like, "This is it. This is the grand achievement that we've all been waiting for. It's accessible. It's beautiful. It's artistic. This is the thing we're going to point to." And then months later, we already have Gone Home, and we got a couple other things that are looking like they could be just as important.
Yeah. No, I mean it's an influx market. We're not bound to put anything on a pedestal for any longer than we deem it to see fit.
That's kind of exciting, isn't it? Because I feel like we're still in the theater. It's still Hamlet is the gold standard 500 years later.
Yeah.
Citizen Kane 60 years later. I don't know, the White Album. I don't even know what people think about music these days. I'm kind of out of that scene. But games is every year there's a new best game of all time.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's demonstrative of the willingness to accept the new rather than canonize the old. Although there is a certain amount of reverence that we have for old games. Yeah,
I always find
Mega Man 2.
I find the retro tendencies of the gaming culture to be frustrating because sometimes I'm like, yes, everyone needs to know about Sierra's early work. Everyone needs to know about NES platformers. But the other time I'm like, guys, Castlevania sucked. I'm sorry. Don't put that shit on a pedestal just because you get gamer cred for beating old shitty games. Some of that stuff we really needed to get past. Yeah. And I'm glad we left that in our rear view.
I usually basically bear it down like this, is that I loved old games. I did. I loved all the Sierra games. I loved the LucasArts Adventure games. I loved the Mega Man games. I loved Sonic the Hedgehog. I loved Phantasy Star. I loved Final Fantasy. I loved Chrono Trigger. But if you think that the medium peaked back then, if you think that the reason why these games were so good was because we were technologically limited to what we made. If you honestly don't think that they made Chrono Trigger with, the best balls-to-the-wall graphics that they could manage on the Super Nintendo for that story, you are fucking smoking something.
How you changed the tenor of that going into that.
No, it's absolutely true. I mean, to acknowledge... You have to be able to acknowledge the fact that the only reason why video games were made like they were back in the day was because we had limitations. And if you can overcome those limitations today, if you can make something better, you should make something better. Just because you have a lot of nostalgia for pixel graphics, or just because you have a lot of nostalgia for 2-button systems of just jump and shoot, that doesn't mean it's the best game ever.
Pac-Man, Galaga, Tetris, all that shit rocks hard. But you have to remember that there were thousands of shitty shitty games that came out at the same time that we don't remember. Like, we're super cherry picking our nostalgia, and I look around and I see that some of the greatest, most inventive, most beautiful works of art being put out every fucking week in this industry, and I'm really not vibing on the negativity.
Every time I drop into Greenlight, Steam Greenlight, because I try to make a point of looking at Greenlight every, couple of days, at least once a week. And I get confronted with something that's like, do you remember the days of old RPGs? I'm like, yeah, no. Because, if that's your sell to me, if your sell is, it's like it used to be, my response is going to be, I'm not really interested in how it used to be. I'm interested in what's good, what's great, even.
Well, some of that stuff that was great about, for example, old RPGs is timeless. Like, good writing is timeless. It has nothing to do with technology. If your selling point is you're going to have good writing, like some of those old games, that's not an appeal to nostalgia. That's just a thing you could have said. You could say, we're making a game, it has good writing.
Absolutely. But instead it's like, oh, hey, you remember when great platformers were great platformers? I'm like, I do remember great platformers.
Rayman Origin came out 2 years ago.
Yeah. Like, it doesn't match up. If your biggest call to prominence, if your biggest quality that you can advertise to people is, we're making a game that looks like it was 20 years old, I'm not interested. If you want to tell me that you're making a game where you focus on character and, you've got great writing and there's going to be some stirring scenes and amazing choices and an emotional effect, and it happens to look like a game that was made 20 years ago, I'm interested before you even get to that point.
Lone Survivor is my go-to example there. That looks like the, as retro as one could possibly imagine, but it's like genuinely a super effective horror game that just so happens to look pixely.
Yeah.
It's not, I wouldn't say incidental, it's part of the appeal, but you could sell it to me on its aspects that have nothing to do with the graphical style, and then just spring that on me afterwards.
Yeah, it wouldn't have any effect of my appreciation of the game if you had made Lone Survivor and failed to mention that it was just a pixel-based game.
Yep. Then this is the part where we have to remind everyone that we've been gaming since forever and that we love Super Mario World and King's Quest, and
it basically, just because old things were good and they still remain good to you, and maybe you haven't played them yet, and maybe you want to experience them, and maybe they're a kind of a new world that you like, that you love, and there's something interesting, that doesn't mean that that's the gold standard. We have the fortune to game in a world right now in video games where you can choose to make a much wider variety. Like, retro games didn't exist back in fucking 1990. There was no such thing as retro games because all the games were retro. But we exist in a world where we can have games that have full voice acting, or they're fully based on text, or they're only text. There are no graphics. They're ASCII games. They are top down. They're isometric. They're polygon. They're hand drawn. They're cel-shaded. They're voxel games. You can do fucking anything you want with games. You can make any kind of game you want nowadays, pretty much.
Mode 7, blast processing.
Absolutely blast processing. I want to, do you remember the golden age of games when it was all full motion video, Austin?
Oh, Lord. That's a thing, though, that we pretend like it's not happening, but then David Cage.
Yeah. No, it's happening. It's happening.
Yeah.
But that's what's great about gaming now, is that it can all happen.
Yep. You can 1 minute be playing like photorealistic, serious crime drama, and then just turn on Zork.
Pretty much. And the great thing about it too is that you can turn on like old school Zork, like actual Zork, or you can just turn on a game that was made like last year that kind of looks like Zork, in that there are words.
Yep. We don't take enough time to sit back and appreciate the variety and the and all the good things that this hobby affords us.
The possibilities.
I think I said this on Twitter. It's like no one ever publishes the headline like things are pretty good all around. Like you have to make an effort to acknowledge these things because otherwise no one else is going to, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I'd be interested in if I published an article on BT that just said things are okay. Like how many comments would that get? Like the body of the text is like, some companies are losing money, but a lot of others aren't. I enjoyed some games today, and I hear a lot of other people did too. What are your thoughts? Like everyone would be like, slow news day. you
Stop and smell the roses, or the oak trees.
Oh God, I can't. Now I'll give you that. That was a good transition.
I'm glad.
I don't think. Do we need to have a guest? I feel like this is. It depends on what I played, because if I bring a bunch of Japanese shit, you'll have nothing to say.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I think the third member of the BT podcast is entirely dependent on the subject matter, and today just so.
I'm capable of asking questions. I'm being like, oh, I see. Fire Emblem, and this refers to an emblem. Is it made of fire, or does it represent fire?
Actually, my brother just came back up to Tallahassee for the next school year, and he borrowed Fire Emblem, and I went over to see him earlier today, and he was like, fuck you, this game is impossible. I love that when no one expects games to be that brutal nowadays. Everything's kind of... He was playing Tomb Raider, and he was like, basically you could play it just one hand with your eyes closed.
Yep.
And then Fire Emblem's just like, you need to get some graph paper if you want to get through this map. So, yeah, Fire Emblem. I could talk about it all day. You should stop me.
I think you should stop.
I'm not going to stop on my own, Johnny.
Stop.
Hammer time?
I was thinking collaborate and listen. Or in the name of love.
Okay. How do we sign off? Do you have any jokes? Do you have anything prepared?
I got wood.
Oak.
Damn straight.